December 26, 1992. Washington is taking on the Los Angeles Raiders at RFK Stadium in the final game of the regular season. Washington is coming off of their victory at Super Bowl 26 the year before, and is looking to make it back into the postseason. Currently, they sit at 9-6, and if the season ended today, they'd be in the playoffs as the number 6 seed. So you might be thinking that this game against the Raiders is absolutely huge, and a must-win game. However, it's just the opposite. It's an almost meaningless game. Despite the fact that they have not clinched a playoff spot yet, and despite the fact that they are in the playoff picture, this game is practically meaningless. A win could eliminate them, and a loss could put them in the postseason. This is the story of the most bizarre postseason scenario of all time. First, we need a bit of context as to how the standings look, because they play out in such a way that makes this scenario occur. In 1990, the NFL expanded the postseason to include 6 teams in each conference, meaning that you had 3 division winners and 3 wildcards making it. In the NFC, there is no drama whatsoever for the division races. Entering the final week of the season, Dallas clinched the NFC East at 12-3, Minnesota clinched the NFC Central at 10-5, and San Francisco clinched the NFC West at 13-2. And 2 of the wildcard spots had already been clinched. New Orleans clinched one at 11-4, and Philadelphia clinched one at 10-5. Where the drama was at was with the final wildcard spot. There were 2 teams competing. On one hand, you had the Green Bay Packers. Led by Brett Favre, the Packers were 9-6 entering the final week, and they were looking to make the postseason for the first time since 1982, and make it for the first time in a full non-strike shortened season since 1972. And on the other hand, you had Washington, the defending Super Bowl champion, who was looking to make it for the 3rd straight year, and for the 8th time in the last 11 years. 2 teams fighting for 1 spot. As things stood, Washington had the tiebreaker over Green Bay, since Washington was 7-5 in conference play, while Green Bay was 6-5. And since Washington was playing the Raiders in the final week, their conference record in the NFC was locked in. Remember, the NFL didn't start doing divisional games in the final week of the season until 2010. You can check out why that was the case by clicking on the video in the upper right corner. So it seems fairly straightforward, right? If Washington wins their game over the Raiders, they're in. Well, not quite, because the Eagles, who had already clinched a playoff spot, were 10-5. If the Eagles lost their final game of the season to the Giants, then they'd be 10-6. Let's say Green Bay beats Minnesota in their final game of the season, and Washington beats the Raiders. You've got 3 teams at 10-6. All 3 teams would have conference records of 7-5, so that tiebreaker wouldn't work. Based on the 3-way tiebreaking system they had back in 1992, if all 3 of those teams tied at 10-6, Philadelphia and Green Bay would be the ones getting in, and Washington would be the odd team out. Oh, and to make matters even more complicated, this game between Washington and the Raiders was taking place on a Saturday, while Philadelphia's game, along with Green Bay's game, were on Sunday, meaning that Washington couldn't even scoreboard watch. What does this all mean? Washington, in a weird way, had some incentive to lose. You could rest your starters and take a de facto bye week to get everyone healthy and to get ready for the postseason, because your game does not matter. If you win, you're out of the playoffs if the Eagles, who have nothing to play for, lose to the Giants and the Packers beat the Vikings. If you lose, your odds of making the playoffs may have actually increased, since you don't have to rely on the Eagles-Giants game going your way, and you only have to worry about the Packers-Vikings game. In the end, this whole chaotic mess became a non-story. Washington lost their game to the Raiders by a final score of 21-20, but they played all their starters. Philadelphia beat the Giants by a final score of 20-10, ending the Ray Handley era in New York on a whimper. And the Vikings beat the Packers 27-7, meaning that with Washington and Green Bay both sitting at 9-7, Washington got the final wildcard spot with a better conference record. Washington would go on to beat Minnesota in the wildcard round before falling to San Francisco in the divisional round. In the early days of the 12-team playoff format, nobody really knew what was going on, to the point where even the NFL had to issue multiple clarifications and corrections about playoff scenarios. You know it's good when your own league office gets it wrong. As Joe Gibbs said, it's so complicated that I can't figure it out anyway. 1,000 things can happen. While this playoff scenario is a lot better than, let's say, deciding who makes it by a coin flip, it's still absolutely bizarre. Herm Edwards once said, "You play to win the game." But amazingly enough, in this instance, sometimes the best way to win is to lose. Special thanks to all our Patreon supporters for helping out the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.